Hi, welcome to the SJ Child Show.
Welcome to the SJ Child Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show.
This conversation is one that needs to be had in this series, and that is the single parent conversation. And let's talk about what that means for especially dads that struggles or questions or advice, all of the good things that we have to share in our experiences. Today I have Mark. Do you like to go by Mark Jacob Halberg?
Yeah, I mean, like that's usually when I know I'm in trouble when my full name gets brought out. But yeah, I've had various, Marcus, as my sister likes to call me. So many names over the years.
Yeah, right. So many names. Oh, it's so nice to have you on the show today. We have met in the podcasting world, and so it's been just a fantastic ride of all sorts of storytelling and ideas and perceptions all over the place. It's a wonderful place to be. And today we're going to get your perception on parenting. But first, give us a little introduction about yourself. And
So I mean, I'm all over the board with lots of stuff, but I've been podcasting I'm coming up on 3 years on one show, getting close to a year on another show. Getting ready for like pretty big changes with my main show, The Phantom Effect. We're got some stuff in the works where I'm going to be drastically going through some changes in the next couple months, but very excited about it, like good changes kind of thing. But yeah, I've been doing that for like 3 years. Been a single parent for close to 3 years now. So about almost the exact same as podcasting. I started podcasting before, but times kind of coincided there a little bit. Pretty big nerd guy, like obviously, as if anyone can see my background, and I have so many different genres of nerd things behind me. But yeah, I've been doing that for a while, but I did a lot of sports. I did MMA for 7 years. So I've been like all over the board with stuff, but have like a unique perspective growing up with parents who weren't nerdy, and then now having a kid who's growing up nerdy and seeing this like it's a different disconnect between growing up without really parents who knew what was going on. They were super supportive of it, but had zero clue what I was talking about in any way, shape, or form. And now I know what he's talking about. So it's interesting.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good topic to kind of look at too, because the same goes for me. Are your parents still married then, or they divorced? Okay,
like 40 years or something like that.
And my divorced when I was 7. So I come from single, from the divorced household where both of my parents were single at one point in their journeys. Single parents, that is.
Right.
And it's interesting to now be in a almost 20-year relationship and kind of have that different perspective to see what that looks like in my children and how they respond to situations differently than I could or would have. So
right,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely different. There's just so many different variations of things now that it's hard. And again, I don't know how much my advice will impact people, but I definitely have picked up on things of being burnt out or weird struggles in various different things. I mean, it's definitely a stone's like I can't remember the exact phrasing of the old saying, but like definitely I'm like a stone's throw away from who I was like, 2.5 years ago. And it's constant changes, but there's always things you got to work with.
So in the very beginning, when all of the changes were starting to occur, how did you find building that relationship with your child? What types of kind of challenges did you find to be there?
So, I mean, it's a good question because like stuff is kind of flipped now, but it took a long time. Back when stuff first happened, I mean, kids are always going to like flip flop who their favorite parent is, but like early on, he, was very much like a mama's boy, and to an extent still is. But like he understands things now, but back when it first started, it was just I don't really understand, but it kind of seemed like, not that it was I'm blaming dad, but like dad seems to be the one struggling more. So I think in his mind it's somehow my fault.
Mm.
And so for the first like year and a half, like it was just a lot of, because I had money issues and a lot of stuff that impacted other things, but it was a lot of like taking him to the park extra and then like working on stuff till like 2 a.m. and then being super exhausted. And I've learned things and have changed certain habits to not burn myself out. But yeah, early on, it was a lot of taking extra time to take him to the park and like taking him to like, a trampoline park or like various different things that, like around the town had. And just like trying to like juggle like spending extra time with him and then adjusting to like a drastic life change. And so there was definitely days where I did not do well and, would get really mad at like, like kids being kids and, kind of stuff like that, which hurt, because then, his mom, who's, to not like be bitter about things, having a much easier time for different reasons, is able to be more happy around him. So it took a while up until maybe like 4 or 6 months ago, where now it's, instead of like it being, crying when we're leaving mom's place, 90% of the time now it's like, okay, cool, I get to go to dad's. So I've seen the shift in the last 6 months, but it took like 2 years of like way more attention and like constantly playing with him like while I'm at work, because I work from home. So I'm able to take like, like if I'm in theory caught up on everything, I can afford to take maybe an extra break and play a game of Uno with him really quick, or, watch him do something on his iPad, or, like whatever it might be. It took a lot of extra time and a lot of extra devoted time to get to the point where we are now, where we're able to just like go outside and have a water gun fight and have a bunch of fun and like laugh and giggle. And like when he got picked up today, which obviously is always the day I always get, because I will always get sad. And I feel like the day that I don't get sad when he leaves is a sad day for my own, psyche. Like,
agreed.
But he left and he was really sad about it, which is pretty par for the course these days for both sides. But for my side, it was not that way for a long time. When it was time to leave dad's place, it was like, get me out the door. Like, let's get back to mom's place. But when he left, and he, like I'd mentioned to you before we started recording, that he's sick right now and has a high fever. So I'm waiting until I get sick. But when he left, he was like, oh, I don't want to leave, Dad, because you've been doing such a good job of taking care of me that I'm happy and stuff like that. 2 years ago, like I know kids grow up, but like he would not have made comments like that 2 years ago. So that's a very long-winded answer.
No, I love it. Hey, that's what you're supposed to do on these things, right? No, it's fantastic. And there's so much that we have to give credit for in children that, their brain isn't developed and they don't completely understand, especially adult situations and why they're happening. But the best we can do is support them in where they're at. And I like that you said, like letting him kind of guide the way with your fun and letting him show you things, because in doing that, that really gives him the opportunity to be special and have your connection made with him. And there's such a difference between attention and connection. And a lot of people, or maybe older generations, would have said, oh, they're doing this for attention, doing this for attention. And for me, when I see a child trying so hard to interact with a parent, it's a connection that they're trying to build and make with them, to feel safe, to feel heard and seen and valued. It's not that like, I want attention kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I really have a different view of that than maybe when I started my parenting journey, which was let's see, 19 years ago.
Yeah, and this is where like your heart, you feel your hair getting gray when you have to like recount how long it's been. You're like, oh, that's right, and then that's
Exactly.
everyone
You
thinks
can
it's
see it,
age when
right?
it's
I'm just
parenting. It's
joking.
not. It's really just reminding yourself how long you've been a parent for, and
Oh
then you're
my
like, oh
gosh.
God, and then it starts.
Yeah, right. So when you are having to kind of balance that work and raising a child, what kind of resources, or if any, do you reach out for? Probably, I think statistically men ask for less help than women. So that might
Yeah,
be something that's just the
yeah,
one and done.
yeah. I mean, my situation's a little different because I moved states to before stuff kind of like broke off to make her happier. And then when things like went haywire, I had the option to go back to Michigan. Like I had essentially secured a uh work from home, like, going back into sales, which is like I didn't want to do, but the money would have been good. And I could have easily moved back to Michigan. And, like part of it was a worry about like her and, potentially like child support issues and things like that. But then a lot of it was just, when's the next time I'd see him? Like, okay, well, maybe in like 5 months, maybe in 6 months, like who knows, like how long it would take to kind of secure
Yeah.
seeing him. So, you know, right or wrong, I guess it depends on your viewpoint, put myself through 2 years of pure hell of being in the same house as someone who had ended a relationship for different reasons, and then having to like live in what I have to think is like one of the shittiest apartments. Sorry for swearing.
It's okay.
That like my town has. I mean, I can't even really call it like a studio. I mean, they called it a studio,
Oh gosh,
but
yeah.
like really like broken down house of like someone that's like took a house and like converted it into four small apartments,
Mm.
kind of thing. And like that's where I lived for a year until I took this job and was like, let's do 9 million jobs, which I've done scaled back a little bit now. But um so a lot of it was I didn't have anyone to ask help for. I mean, I had like friends that I would ask for help in terms of like, hey, I'm gonna rant at you for 3 hours because I'm trying to keep my head from like popping off my neck.
Yeah.
And so I did reach out to certain friends to like keep me grounded until I started to like establish some friends here. But obviously it's different, none of them have kids. And so,
Mm.
you try to juggle like different things. And, I've done better now at trying to reach out to like other parents that he goes to school with. And so I have like a few people where I can set up play dates for him like once in a while that like are
Yeah.
outside of, you know, her family and and his cousins and all that. And so part of it was just kind of realizing that I needed to do things like that. Like if I wanted him to have other things to do, I had to go out and do it, you know, because a lot of it too is, like every parent will be different, but if the other side's not going to be pushing them to go do sports or, setting up outside play dates or things like that, if you want your kid to have those interactions, like as much as it's extra work on top of, I'm
Mm.
sure, everything else that you're doing,
Yeah.
I was like, I don't have a choice. And so part of it is like me having done that. And then also telling her, like, hey, I can't do this before he finishes school. I need you to reach out to this parent and get their contact info. So a lot of it too is just like small things like that of like, I'm not really maybe not reaching out for help, but I'm like trying to make sure I've given him something that I can at least look back and be like, hey, at least I made the attempt. I tried.
Yeah.
Like, so some of it is just like internally asking for help in terms of like what's something small that I can do that will make him happier if I even just try to get it done,
Mm.
because he might not recognize it now, but in 4 or 5 years when he's like asking questions and we're talking about things, he'll remember like, oh yeah, dad did do a lot of that stuff. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the stuff that I think about. I try to think more long term when it comes to it. And that's just because again, my advice is just like, if you try to keep everything in the present, you're going to drive yourself insane because it's always going to feel like you're not doing enough
Mm-hmm.
because it's the present. Like we always feel like we're not working hard enough or growing enough or different things like that. And so when it comes to him, I try to see a longer future, because otherwise you're going to just drive yourself like guilty with like doubt and just so many other things.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? No, I completely understand that. I'm on chat. Well, my youngest is out of 3. So it's so different for each child too, because they're so different in age and they're so differently put together.
Yeah.
And so it's this constant learning how to reevaluate situations. And my stepdaughter, her mom was a single mom, and I was the one who communicated with her constantly for the whole 18 years.
Right.
So, I saw so much of her struggles and things, and I couldn't imagine how hard that would have been. And like in that, what type of, or how better, because I don't want you to have to get into any personal details or anything like that, but how's the communication improved?
Yeah. Oh, like with her?
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked about stuff on different things in the past. I'm fairly open at this point, just because, I feel like it just helps.
We share our stories. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it helps when you can share your thoughts on things. I mean, there's ups and downs. Like I do my best to, minus best friends who are there to literally be like, like blank and all that kind of stuff. But I try not to like really blame too much. There's definitely disconnects with things and problems that arose from, instead of it being a 50-50, it has turned into more of a me watching him 70%.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of did that on purpose, because I never wanted to say no, because if he ever thinks like, oh, I wanted to go to dad's this week because mom's busy, but dad said no, like I just kind of figured at his young enough age, because he's almost 6 and still kind of struggling with how things are going. Like, yeah, is it more stressful to watch him more? Sure, I've canceled numerous plans, and in December I'm probably going to be watching him full time, because she might be moving back to Michigan for work, and so I'll have him full time potentially for years. And I would rather, I guess, to go back to actually answer your question, communication's good enough in the sense that if there is a weekend that I like have to get something done, or like a weekend where like, hey, I'm doing media at this convention, like I kind of need to be there the whole weekend and I can't take him because I'm like actively working. I know it's technically my week, but can you watch him for the weekend? It's generally like enough where I think we've only said no to each other like once, and that's because it was like, oh, I'm already going to be out of town. Like I can't watch him. So it's been good in the sense of like, hey, can you watch him here? Or like, hey, he's sick, heads up, something like that. So like it's civil enough in the sense where if it concerns him, we'll update each other on what's going on for the most part. Hey, he got into the school. Do you want me to include you on the tour, or do you want me to just like tell you what it was like? That kind of thing. Like, hey, his school's doing an event tomorrow. It starts at 11:30. Okay, I'll see you there. That kind of thing. Or like when for Mother's Day, which it sucks that kindergarten ends before Father's Day hits, because then then I don't get anything from his school, and I'm like, darn. Like I know last year they had him do like a card, but like I don't think they really did anything this year because of how the dates lined up. But like I had him during Mother's Day, so I picked him up from school, and they did like a song, and they had like a bunch of like Mother's Day stuff. So like I recorded the song, I sent it to her, like told her all this stuff that he was going to give her as like a heads up, so she could like act extra surprised, like so stuff like that. We try to communicate to at least be like, hey, look, we may not like each other, but
we like this kid.
Right. Yeah. The kid's really good, and let's not screw that up.
Yeah.
So like here's a bunch of stuff. So it's civil enough.
Good. Well, and that's just so difficult because I don't know how old you are, but I'm sure you're young. And my husband was really young when he was, he was a teen dad. So for him, that was a lot of not having the same communication as he's able to have today,
Right. Yeah.
20 years later.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting how we can either be really upfront and honest with our kids about the situation, or we can not tell them, obviously. And that's each individual's opinion or, option to do. I think personally that honesty is the best way to go, because in the long run, like you said, there's questions asked. And then if you are the one who's standing on faulty ground, then sometimes that can be a little bit disheartening for the child in that sense. So
Yeah.
but it's really tricky, isn't it, when you're trying to
Yeah.
uphold everybody's dignity and humanity in the whole
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you not like what do you not say to not completely like, because as much as you want to be honest, like you can't ever say the whole truth behind. I mean, I guess in some situations you can. Mine, I can't, because it'll make him look at his mom in not a good way.
Yeah.
So I can never really be fully honest with him on like
And
what
hopefully she
happened.
will be, hopefully she will be, so that he's not left with this like, I know that there's something I don't know kind of sense.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's hopefully that will be the case and you don't take that burden upon yourself, by the way. So,
right.
yeah,
no,
not yours, not yours.
Yeah. No, I guess that's the struggle sometimes too, is like, what do you like, what to take on versus what not to take on. And it's definitely been a learned like mentality. Like, I don't think I'm wise by any means. Like, I don't care. I don't mind saying how old I am. I literally talk about it on my shows all the time. I just turned, well, not just turned, but I'm in the middle of 33, so will be coming up on 34. So it's definitely been like a learned wise experience of like, I'm just now being like, I actually feel like I have thoughts that can contribute to things. And it took, a lot of hardship to get there, but at least now I can like do things now that, mean more to like him. I understand things more. So it was definitely like a weird first like year and a half, but the last 6 months, so like a lot of stuff has improved. Like I can see him being more like, you can tell when they're being more like open with like who they are versus like just pretending to be like a happy kid.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so true too. And it really comes down to the rate of trust and comfortability that you have with them in that relationship you're building. So yeah, that's wonderful. So is he going to be going to school with you there?
Yeah, so it's a very long story, but essentially, she had said she was applying for these two like higher like charter schools, like schools that you have to like, get lucky in lottery, like a random lottery yourself into. And we hadn't talked about kindergarten or like anything yet. So I was like, oh, all right, well, I guess if you've got it handled, like I'll let you handle it. And then he didn't get into either of them. And then I was like, okay, what backups? And then was told, well, I only applied to those two, and open enrollment for the city we're in is closed. And I was like, and it became very apparent it was my job now to find him a school in a very short period of time that was still a good school.
Yeah.
So I got him into, because I'm on the border of one city into another city.
Okay.
So he had a school no matter what he would get into, and it was, it is a good school, good public school. He's on the wait list for the charter school. Who knows if he'll get in or not? But I applied to send him out of district because the city next to us is like just a like double higher income average. Like in general, the city like just has more money to put into their schools. So even their public schools are rated way higher than some of the other charter schools just because of how much money the city has for their schools. And so I just got word like not even a week ago that he got accepted into the number one public school in that city. And I don't know how much he cares about like music. He's just now getting into like he's now heard me play music. Like he's obsessed with Fall Out Boy because he keeps hearing a song on the radio. Uh, so he keeps like hearing a song on the radio. No, you're fine. I know exactly what was going on, so I was like, I know it's happening.
Yeah, and he can't hear anything because of the headphones. He just like sees us talking.
Yeah, he sees the mouth moving. You're like, okay, you're not busy. Anyway, no. And yeah, so he's just now like getting into certain music things from like hearing me play either certain songs on the radio, or there's like a like synthwave radio station on YouTube that I'll play while I'm working because it like helps get you to focus.
Yeah.
Like and so he's gotten into like different musics, and so the school he got into has like the #1 music program, like it's not in the state but pretty close. So we went by and looked at it. Of course, on the outside it looks like just a big gray building. But like, like their playground seems good. So I took him just to walk around and be like, hey, look, your playground might be kind of small, but there's like a public park right next to his school, which I feel like is going to be kind of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's, depending on what she does with a job thing, which I couldn't blame her just because I don't know a lot enough of the details, but I think it's like a, figure up kind of job increase kind of thing to where like not taking it, like, would be like you turning down like $12,000 essentially. So, it became kind of this juggle of like, well, are you going to move to Michigan? And me being like, I don't really want to anymore because it took like 3 years of hell to get a life established here. And now you're asking me to like leave it again because I've, lost all my friends back in Michigan for the most part, minus a few because I left. And so outside of my parents, there's really not much there for me anymore after 3.5 years of being gone. And it was like, well, I guess can I take him with me? No. What about school? Oh, I forgot about school. And then me being like, how? But okay. And so it just kind of became like all right, well then I guess if you take the job and you leave at the end of the year, he'll just stay with me until kindergarten is close to done. And then we'll have to have another discussion on what happens, which, I don't know what'll happen. And that's super stressful. But I just know that I at least wanted to have him here with me because I didn't want to ever put him through like uprooting him in the middle of a school year. To be like, not only say goodbye to all your friends that you've, still kept up with from 4K, but say goodbye to all the new friends you've made. Oh, and by the way, dad's not coming with you because it would take me a few months to like secure a cheap enough apartment to like make it work. And so like, not only are you saying goodbye to all your friends, but now dad can't come and you're not going to see dad for a while. I was like, okay, maybe he won't see his mom for a while, but for me, and I guess for single parents that listen, like you have to sometimes be weirdly selfish with things. Like not be like a jerk or anything like with your thoughts, but like if your thought is like I'd rather have him be with me than not see me, like I guess you could view it as like selfish, but like it's a good selfish because what's the alternative? You don't see your kid. Like it's fine to be selfish in things like that. And that's just something that I've learned like recently is like I had to like reconcile with myself and be like, I'd rather him not see her and just like for breaks or summer vacation. And like, I was more than accommodating when we had that conversation. I said, look, I will meet you halfway for every break, or I'll just come home because my parents do live in Michigan. And like summer vacation, I'll meet you halfway and like, you can take him for half the summer and then like, we can figure that out. Or if like you end up coming back to like visit your family and you want to take him to your family's place for a few days or whatever, like as long as you bring him to school, I don't care. Like, so I kind of laid it all out and was like, I'll be as accommodating as I can be so you can see him as much as you want to, be like, look, if you take the job because it's good for you, that's fine. I'll do my best to make sure you see him, but then internally be like, yay, he gets to stay with me. Cause it'll be stressful. And like, I won't really get to do a lot of things with friends in this, in the summer or like when they're having parties or like events or get-togethers, like I won't be able to go to most of them. And as much as that will suck, I know at least he's happy and having fun, and that for me is like I can reconcile everything else because
Yeah.
I have enough stuff that I can work on to like to be fine with. So
Absolutely. Well, before we go, I do want you to be able to tell us where we can go to support you and listen to your podcasts and all that good stuff.
yeah, so I have a couple. I'm over the place. So I have my interview show. I guess I'd call it more of there's the Fandom Effect, which is a show centered around diving into like different fandoms from different variations from like comic books to TV to movies. So like interviewing actors, artists, things like that to talk about kind of the projects they're doing, but then we try to dive into what led them to the path that they're on to try to provide some sort of advice for, the next nerdy generation to be like, hey, look, these people are all huge nerds and super successful and got, made fun of in school and like that. So we try to dive into that side of things to share things. And my son, who I can say his name, Cameron, because his name is on all my shows, is like our unofficial mascot. He appears on almost every episode at some point. You hear him talking in the background and stuff. And I've made it very clear that he's a part of the show. And so I try to like, keep things down, but it's a real one. That one's available like everywhere you can find podcasts. If you just Google the Fandom Effect, you'll find like the Apple link, and then all of our other like Facebook, Twitter, stuff like that is in the show descriptions. My other show is more of like a funnier one. Dad's Anime Stash is just me and some dads that all have kids, and we all watch tons of anime. So every week we just live review like various animes or various different things because at that point all of our kids are asleep, and so we just yell about anime for an hour, and then we all go about our day. That one live streams every Thursday night. But same thing, if you Google Dad's Anime Stash, it pops up. And I have a digital editing company called Digital Shogun, which is just where I do video and audio work for different people that I started. So if you just Google Digital Shogun, I think the Facebook and YouTube will pop up, and the email and all that's kind of like associated with all that.
Oh, that's wonderful, Mark. Well, wish you the best of luck with all of the things going on, and busy summer, it sounds like, and on your way to kindergarten. Please reach out when you have questions.
Yeah, will do. There will be lots of moments.
Yeah, right. No, I'm really glad that we got to have this conversation today. And thank you so much for being so transparent and vulnerable and really just sharing your story with us. It was great. It was great to hear.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm glad we were able to make it work. And like I said, it's just, I've been doing it for a while now where I've just at least picked up a couple things of, nuggets of wisdom, I guess, and just various different things. And it's never going to be a perfect picture, but I feel good about the work that I've done, in the last, year. So
I like that. Good advice for single parents out there. And every parent out there, no matter what, it's never going to be a perfect picture. And the best you can do is just keep doing your best.
Yeah, exactly. Take everything one day at a time and just let yourself. Honestly, the biggest advice I would give is let yourself be selfish. It's fine, taking an extra 5 minutes to not play with them, to do something else. And it's fine to tell them to wait on something and you'll play. And then it's just when it comes time to play with them, like give them the full attention. Like he knows as soon as I say like, hey, give me 5 minutes and I wrap something up, my phone stays on my desk and we go off and we do something and my phone doesn't leave my pocket or doesn't come outside. So he gets my full undivided attention for, that moment. Yeah. And then he's happy and has fun. And then I can get back to work later knowing that he's good. So it's a juggle act, but
exactly.
So it's always going to be a juggle act, but just let yourself be selfish, honestly, is my best advice.
I love that. Thank you, Mark. Well, it's so nice to catch up with you and I look forward to staying in touch for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime.